Coming to you live around the world from NOV's Studio 202. This is Inside Out Horizons. With your hosts, Lydia Mabry, Jeremy Griswold, Cass Casey, and Shelby Dumaine. Now, let's start the show.
Hello and welcome to Inside Out. My name is Shelby Dumaine and I'm your host this morning. Thank you for joining wherever in the world you are watching from. Let us know in the comments, but also welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We're glad you're here. This is the show where we talk to experts from within the industry or within NOV, and we bring that insight out to you, the audience. We have a really incredible show for you today. We're going to be talking about horizontal directional drilling, or HDD, and we have an amazing panel full of experts here that really know their stuff and that are excited to talk to you. But before we have them on, I do want to shout out and go over to Ben to tell us a little bit about how you can get involved in the show today.
Yeah, thanks. So if you want to follow along and leave comments in the chat, I'll be monitoring, and we'll do a Q&A at the end of the show for that. So be sure to put your questions in. We encourage you to do that. Also, before we have all those questions at the end, we're going to do a trivia question right now.
Rig Geeks Post of the Week.
Okay, so this week's question is, what is the torque of our strongest connection of HDD drill pipe? So once we have the show, we'll go back. So back over to you, Shelby.
All right, thank you, Ben. I'm looking forward to seeing all of those questions and comments and any guesses for that trivia question. And I always like to see who got it right, all the different guesses we have. But without further ado, I want to go ahead and introduce our panelists. And I'm going to actually let them kind of introduce themselves so I don't mess up any titles, or I really want y'all to let the folks know who you are. So starting off, Zach Todd, can you let the people know who you are and what you do?
Sure. Yeah, thanks for having us, Shelby. I'm Zach Todd. I am our regional manager for our Directional Drilling Technologies business here in North America. Our business is a global business where we primarily manufacture, rent, and sell downhole measurement while drilling devices, LWD equipment, and rotary steerable equipment as well. And we'll also be speaking a little bit for the downhole division that does drilling motors, and also Reed Hycalog that does drill bits today.
Excellent. And Ludivine?
Yes, Ludivine Laurent Bureau. I'm in charge of global sales with Prideco. So Prideco manufactures drill pipe, heavyweight drill collars, and all manner of accessories to go with it. We are globally, we have facilities all over the world, here in North America, in Veracruz, Mexico, Singapore, China. We really focus on manufacturing product to help customers solve the most challenging drilling needs, right? So we're very much concerned about what the challenges are, how we solve them, and we do that by innovating with customers and by really going for the most quality product that we can. I also have the privilege today to speak for Tuboscope, who's our sister company that works with us in terms of servicing the product. So obviously when you develop these products that aren't standard, you need to make sure that you're able to repair them wherever you are in the world. Right. And Tuboscope, along with a lot of other partner licensees, offer those services to us throughout the world. And Tuboscope does a whole lot of other things, and they will forgive me if I forget any of them today. But they do IPC, machining services, hard banding. They have line pipe technology that they offer us also. Thread protectors, very important to us, keep those connections protected. And I'm sorry if I forgot anything else, but all manner of maintaining the assets that we sell and helping customers get the most out of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know I have some questions for you on that later, so I'm excited to hear what you have to say. But Travis, go ahead. Let the people know who you are.
Sure. Travis Norman, Strategic Sales Manager for Wellsite Services. We have quite a few product lines within Wellsite Services, but the main two that service the HDD market are our Brandt solids control business. Also, we design, manufacture, sell, and do leasing for HDD jobs around the world. And then we've got our portable power division. So we for HDD applications, anywhere from 50 kW all the way up to 1250 kW generators. And we also have mobile AC and heating units. So as we get into the summer here, we
nice.
can provide those on the job sites. So yeah.
Absolutely, thank you. And I'm excited. We really, in the realm of horizontal directional drilling, I mean, we got the experts here, so I'm excited for a great show and all the different areas that y'all kind of specialize in. I'm excited to ask specifically about those. But first, Zach, can you tell us a little bit, if anybody's watching, maybe they're new to the industry or aren't familiar, can you tell us what is horizontal directional drilling?
Sure. Yeah. So the HDD business, or horizontal directional drilling, is part of the sort of trenchless pipeline and utility and waterline infrastructure construction business. So you could imagine historically, if you want to lay any sort of a utility line across, several hundred miles or thousands in some cases, they would literally dig trenches and then place all the pipe and utility lines within those. And now we've advanced significantly. So the horizontal directional drilling business enables them to have minimal disruption to the surface. You can imagine there's quite a few things, involving cities and other stuff that you're having to drill under or around with minimal disruption, and also a high degree of precision, which requires a lot of directional drilling expertise.
Excellent. Can you give us examples of what are some of the conditions or challenges that the industry has to overcome when we're talking about that subsurface pipelines?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, from a surface standpoint, there's all sorts of things you could encounter, as you could imagine. Everything from large metropolitan spaces to significant mountain ranges. But probably one of the more prevalent ones that requires a lot of technology is river crossings. You could imagine in many cases really wide rivers. In some cases you're having to drill a mile or two to cross those. And there's a lot of limitations in terms of how you can track the progression of your drilling, and you're drilling BHA subsurface because you have water above you. So in those cases, these companies have really innovated and will actually try to achieve drilling a crossing simultaneously from both sides and then intersect below that, which requires a lot of advanced technology. So that's definitely one of the more challenging applications that we're certainly helping to address.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a whole world underground
Yes.
that we have to consider. So
Yep.
that's really excellent.
Yep.
And Ludivine, I wanted to ask you, so you talked about Price Co. I know drill pipe is in that world. So can you talk about some of the challenges that HDD drillers face when it comes to drill pipe specifically?
Yeah, sure. I think they fall into three buckets. Those would be the stresses that you put on the drill pipe, the hydraulics, and the care and handling of those tubulars. I think the most important one, or the one that probably they deal with the most, is the stresses. I mean, if you think about it, these are not maybe as compact wells as in traditional vertical drilling, but they're drilling really large hole sizes vertically for great lengths, like Zach just talked about. And what ends up happening is they push these tubulars really to the edge of their performance envelopes in terms of what they're capable of doing. So it's already a challenge in normal times. I think add to that the fact that they tend to use a lot of secondhand tubulars. So the issue there with secondhand tubulars is that there's they've lived another life. And there's no way to actually quantify some of the stresses that tube has already seen. You don't know how much fatigue is in there. We can't count for it. Excuse me. We can't count for it. We can't measure it. We can't prevent it. There's really nothing that we can do when you're buying a tube to tell you this has one more well in it and then it's done. So add to that, additionally, HDD doesn't really have the time because they're going from project pretty quickly. They don't have time to really track the life of their tubulars. They move them from project to project, and there's no real standardization in the industry, which creates a lot of issues. If you, say, lose a couple joints, it's not like you have maybe the same ones that are waiting for you, because you don't have a standardization. So you have to go out and find equivalent joints. So that's definitely a challenge that we see. On the hydraulic side, obviously they want torque as much as possible. And typically, if you think about a connector, the more steel you have, right, the more torque you can put into it. So There's always been the sort of tradition, you add a secondary shoulder, you beef up the size of your connection, you put more torque, you push more. It has an impact on the hydraulics that you're able to get from your tubular. If you're beefing up the connection, you're reducing the ID, and you're creating sort of a choke point. And there's been a lot of thought in the oil and gas sector, which we can apply here in terms of how we optimize connectors between getting a maximum torque from the connector and also improving hydraulic efficiency. You can increase the material strength. You can play with the thread forms of your connection to even out the stresses, so you can put more stress into it. You keep your hydraulic efficiency, and you also get torque from it. In terms of care and handling, we definitely, and this is true of anybody that's ever running a connection, if you don't have the same state of wear between the box and the pin, you can have issues. You need to not have any misalignment when you're making up, or you could gall your connection. They take care. I've been out to a rig once, and I actually saw, I had to ask what the person was doing because I'd never seen this before, but they were wiring as they drilled, so they were making up the wire and sort of welding it and putting tape on it and heating it up as it goes. So if you imagine drilling in those conditions, if anything happens to that wire, you're basically pulling out and kind of starting over. So
lost communication.
yes, so it is, there's a lot of challenges that they face.
Yeah, absolutely. So how does, when we're talking about drill pipe technology, how can that be adapted to kind of address these challenges or help with them when it comes to HDD drilling?
Okay, so there's really two ways that it can do that. The first is enhancing the performance of the drill pipe on one side, and then addressing the total cost of ownership of the tubular. On the performance, sorry, I already talked about the connector itself.
Right.
So there's a lot of technology that Grant Prideco has developed over the years in terms of developing really innovative connections that balance. I mean, it's all about balancing the amount of force that you need as well as the hydraulic efficiency of the joint. If you think about drill pipe, though, people often don't because they think it's just one gigantic piece of steel. But it's actually a whole bunch of elements put together. It's a tube, it's a connection, and it's welded. So you can optimize at every single point on that for the specific project that you're working on. And this is why I come to work every day still in this product line, because I think it's pretty exciting to think that you have a very simple product, but by working on each element of it, you get a completely different outcome. So on your tube, you can change the material strength. You can do higher strength material. There's some drawbacks to that. You get higher tensile loads, but then, stress propagation is more common if you ever have any stresses that are incurred in the tube. So it's a give and take. Everything in drill pipe is a give and take. But, when you're thinking about the upsets that you put on there, the tool joints, you're always looking at what tensile loads, what torque, what is the customer needing to reach his final outcome.
Right, absolutely. I love that you talk about your passion there because we were talking before the show, before the cameras are on, about how growing up I always thought on gas, like, it's such a boring industry. And then when I joined it, when I actually became part of it and getting to do this show and hear that, that's where you're right. It's these challenges of these things that people overlook that really is where the excitement and the opportunity lies.
Gosh, I've been my whole career in drill pipe. I don't know if I should be proud to say that, but I think drill pipe it's a fun product to be in, definitely.
Absolutely. I think you should be proud to say that. Absolutely.
Whole career in drill pipe. Woo.
Yes. And I mentioned I had some questions kind of on the Tuboscope side because I know that's a lot of service there. So can you talk about some of these services that Tuboscope or that we provide?
Absolutely. So in prolonging the life of the assets, there's a lot of things that both Grant Prideco and Tuboscope can do together. We offer longer than standard tool joints so that you get more recuts on the tubes. We go to 95 remaining body wall, which means they're thick tubulars. So you have a lot of wear and tear on that tube before you're going to have to replace your drill pipe. Servicing, there's a phased array inspection that Tuboscope does now, which basically in a single pass, they can pick up anything that is occurring in the tubular, which makes a huge difference so that you don't have lost time when you're out there. There's all sorts of maintenance. They can install IPC. And I know a lot of HDD guys are probably thinking, that sounds like an additional cost. But there's things that if you consider the corrosion that could occur in your tubular, if you consider the hydraulic efficiency that IPC can give you, it might be worth the look in terms of what is your economic outcome and how long you want your tubular to last without having to replace it. They also do hard banding, and that again has always been kind of a tough sell with HDD drillers, but adding that extra sort of coat on the outside of your connection obviously makes it last longer when
Right.
you're out there drilling. So, and then everything around the inspections, the repairs, and all that is a big part of this. There's a track ID is something that you can install in
right.
your connection, where you can actually track the life of the assets. So a lot of time, the tubes can last up to 5 years, 6 years, depending how long and how well you're treating them. Less if you're not, but hopefully that's what you're getting out of your assets at the very least. You're going to inspect it and recut it all along the life of the asset. You're going to put it in a lot of different wells. You're going to do a lot of things to that drill pipe. And if you want to measure how often you've done these things, you can have the whole life cycle of your pipe. And managing your assets with, the full integration, the total cost of ownership, you can manage it on the front end and know that you bought an asset at this time, it's going to last this long, you've inspected it this many times, and before it ever fails on you out in the field, and this is an important point, and you end up wasting a lot of time having to remediate, you can grab that on the front end and say, you know what, this tube is just about at the end of its life. So we need to consider replacing it at this point.
Right. Well, and you mentioned earlier talking about one of the challenges being when you get this pipe that you don't know that history on, and so this is kind of a way to have that now, and that knowledge is power element.
We get
is
that
so
question
crucial.
all the time. People always ask, can you help measure fatigue? There is no way. I am here to tell you, you cannot measure fatigue. So.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. And now in the hot seat is Wellsite Services. Can you tell me a little bit, what are some of the products and services that you kind of fit in with HDD drilling?
Yeah. So I'd mentioned Brant earlier. We've been around since 1974. We have a lot of experience globally with manufacturing. So the shakers and the shaker screens, mainly all of this is surrounding the drilling fluids operation. So shakers and shaker screens, centrifuge, desilters, desanders. We can build tank systems, fluid agitators, all of that, like I mentioned earlier, designed in-house, and we can design it and create it for fit for purpose. And then the portable power side, when we're in remote locations, of course, we've got to power all that equipment. So those two product lines, they work together really well. But the main issues that the HDD industry is facing when it comes to the drilling fluids, number one is fracking out. And so in downhole drilling, we call that lost circulation. Just different terminology, same thing. You pump the fluid down the drill pipe. It's supposed to return up your annular, and if it doesn't, then it's going probably into the formation. Even more serious, it could actually return, since you're typically only about a 700 foot TVD, it can actually return back to the surface, which is a big problem. So when that occurs, they have to actually shut down. They're going to have to do some sort of remediation and usually pull out and re-drill. So that could be a really costly event. So some of the things that solids control equipment can do is keep down the solids content and the weight, the density of the fluid, manage your ECDs, and keep that from occurring. So having a good plan, knowing what the rock strength is, knowing if you're going to have, you're going to encounter any of those issues before you go in is really important. So the fluids program and the management is key. But on the back end, having the right equipment, having the right personnel to remove those solids efficiently, so that weight doesn't get up too high, is an important part of the process, so that you're not fracking out. The other thing is when, like Zach mentioned, drilling in really densely populated urban environments, we have a very small footprint on either side of that crossing. And tanks and anything that's holding liquid, solids control equipment, those operations, they take up a lot of space.
Right.
So the more efficient, the better you can plan, like I mentioned, more fit for purpose, to be able to remove the solid as efficiently as possible out of the drilling fluid, have somewhere to put those solids, solidify them so that you can haul them off to a landfill, and then reducing the amount of liquid that you're hauling off. Because if you can imagine when you're in downtown Chicago doing a crossing, trying to get through traffic when you're going to a disposal site that's 2 hours away without traffic,
Yeah.
and you're hauling them 50, 80, 100 barrels at a time, that's an incredibly costly operation.
Right.
So the more efficient that we can be, the more efficient with solids removal that we can be, the less dilution you'll have to have, and then the less haul off. So sometimes some of my customers have stated that the haul off in some of these projects can actually cost equal to or more than the entire drilling rig, tools,
Wow.
Wow.
pipe, the whole drilling process. So it's very, very important that we manage that properly and bring some new ideas and new technology to them.
Absolutely. I never even thought about that, but
Yeah.
but wow, that's very interesting. And normally we play nice. We don't always talk about comparing to our competitors, but
Sure.
but I hear your game for that, and I want to know. So how do we compare? Are we set apart from others out there?
The main thing is that we design, engineer our equipment for
Yeah.
a specific purpose. So you have a direct line to the designers and the engineers, and if there's a specific problem that they're having, we can bring that and kind of round table it, say, hey, this is what they're seeing. We need something that is super low footprint, that's going to be easily mobile. Those are the things that we can kind of put our heads together and design for them. While a lot of our competition, some do build some of their own equipment, but yeah, we pride ourselves in manufacturing and designing and making our own, and then selling or leasing. And then on the back end, once we have a capital sale and one of our customers buys a piece of equipment, we can then inspect and service that for them. So yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, full service
Yeah,
operation.
that's right. It's in the name, Wellsite Services,
That's right.
right? That's right.
It's all about service.
That's right.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, can you expand a little bit on any of the drilling fluid related issues that the HDD industry kind of has to
Sure.
encounter, deal with?
Yeah, so the main two were fracking out.
Right.
So yeah, keeping those densities low and removing those solids efficiently so that you're just you're reducing that haul off. The other one, we have a product that's NSF certified, and that means that we can drill through the water table, and it's a licensed, vetted, and tested product that's safe to drill through fresh water, through the aquifers, and through the water table. And that's going to be a bit balling mitigation product, shale stabilization. You're drilling through all of these formations. You may encounter granite to shale to gravel. So wellbore stability is a really important part of that. So that's Trax TC. We manufacture it right here in Texas. Ship it all over the world. So that's one of the drilling fluids products that we do offer for this industry.
That's awesome. Love some Texas-made
Yeah,
products. Love
absolutely.
it. And well, coming full circle, I want to come back to you, Zach. Can you talk about some of the challenges when it comes to drilling? We've talked about drill pipe and well site. So what are some of the drilling challenges that the industry faces that we can help with?
Yeah, sure. I mean, as Travis was mentioning there, that's a pretty good lead in to that discussion. I mean, you could imagine from a horizontal directional drilling standpoint, it's a pretty fascinating application because you're not that deep in the surface. He mentioned 700 true vertical depth, and it could be even shallower than that. So you're having to deal with several different types of formations throughout the same pilot hole as you're drilling. So when you think in terms of drilling technologies, historically, a lot of technologies like bits or drilling motors, et cetera, would be designed to interface with a specific type of rock. It's very efficient at overcoming the MSE of that rock and breaking it, et cetera. In this case, we really have to balance all of the drilling fluid conditions to make sure that we're not overpressuring anything or communicating with the surface, that we're able to drill through different types of formations efficiently,
Right.
and that we're able to interface with that rock in a way that's going to allow us to directionally control the trajectory of the BHA. So Lots of different challenges. It's a unique application, and we've been working hard to bring some technologies that I think are going to help really improve conditions.
Absolutely. And how does NOV specifically help position our customers to face these challenges?
Sure. So we have a couple of core technologies that we've certainly been involved in the industry for quite some time with. The first one I'd have to mention certainly would be drilling motors. We've had a presence in the HDD business for quite a while. Our motor technology has really been focused on delivering reliability. We understand that, our customers are contracting for these projects and they have to be able to deliver that on time and efficiently. So you have to ensure that you have not only a reliable product coming out of our quality control and service centers, but we're trying to engineer things out of the technology itself that will eliminate reliability issues downhole.
Right.
So examples of that would be when you're drilling through, really tough conditions like granite, for instance. It's a really hard drilling environment. You can imagine a BHA really interfacing with that with a lot of shock and vibration and things like that. Oil-sealed bearing packs bring a lot of reliability to that equation. Also, the motors that we have are designed so that when they're interacting with that pilot hole, you can imagine a bent sub is banging around a little bit. It's able to take that radial side load much more efficiently and not break down whole or be damaged. So drilling motors are a big part of that. Also, we have the ability to offer custom products that have the right type of balance between high-speed applications and high-torque applications like you mentioned, and trying to get that dialed in as well. Kind of along the same vein, we have our drill bit business with Reed Heikelog that manufactures drill bit technology for applications all over the world. A lot of experience to be able to draw on. And I think what we see in this space that we're very excited about is taking the lessons that we've learned from all sorts of applications and bringing drill bits to the space that are more equipped to handle those interbedded formations as you're going through peat, gravel, and sandstone and granite and all that in a way that they can respond with really good side cutting efficiency, enable you to drill those curves and those radiuses exactly where you need them to be, and do all of that hopefully within one or two or three runs, or certainly less than what we've seen, and do it efficiently.
Right, absolutely.
And then lastly, I would say we're bringing some pretty advanced technology to the space that we're excited about. And we recognize that it's going to be very meaningful in a specific set of applications, kind of the higher end, longer crossings, but that would be our automated drilling technologies. That would include things like rotary steerable systems. So that's an example of technology where you have a laptop at the surface that's able to communicate with your tools down hole. You plug in the parameters that you want this tool to drill, and it takes off and sort of automates the drilling process on its own, at the same time giving you much closer measurements to the bit than what I think the industry's been accustomed to. So it's kind of like you can not only see what's happening, but you can react to it.
Right.
And it's so critical in these applications, as we mentioned with, subsurface infrastructure. There's so many different things that you could potentially run into. So you need to keep it on the planned path. And also when they come back through and they're reaming out and putting these large pipe diameters into these pilot holes, inclination and angles and everything become highly critical to be able to pull that piping through.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think so. I know you mentioned the rotary steerable systems. Oh, almost messed up. That's almost a tongue twister. Yeah, RSS. I heard Track ID. I know the Saber Shaker. I think, is that under Brandt? Is that right? I think, we've done shows, I think, on all of this. So I was hearing all these names. I couldn't help. I wanted to let our audience know that we do have past episodes of those if they wanted to check any of that out. My brain, I was like, I got to mention that because that's all incredible information, and hearing how they all connect together is so crucial. But if anyone wanted to deep dive in specifically into one, we have that, or they can always reach out.
And for customers that want to deep dive in HDD,
yes,
we're going to be at the NODEC conference next week.
That's right.
So we look forward to seeing I think all of us.
Yeah, we'll have a booth there.
Booth 734, I believe. Is that right?
Oh my
I think
gosh,
so.
that's
Yes.
impressive.
Sorry.
Wow.
Every once in a while, a number sticks.
Yeah. So come on by and see us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I had one more question for you, Zach.
Okay.
So if somebody wanted to implement some of of what you were talking about in their kind of drilling program, how would a customer go about doing that?
Yeah, good question. I think one of the big advantages that we have at NOV is our infrastructure of our company.
Right.
You know, all of our service centers that we have in districts across the country, across the world, our technology development centers, that really enables our customer base to, I think, use our equipment in a way that's convenient for them. So, you know, if you're doing a crossing up in the Northeast or in the West Coast or somewhere overseas, you can use our R&M facilities to gain access to your technology, to do servicing locally if you need to reduce your cost, and also rely on all the support services that we have collectively, I think, as a company
Right.
to do that. Another thing I would mention is that we offer this technology commercially in whatever way you think is most advantageous for your situation. So we have some customers that will come in and make significant capital purchases, and they feel like owning the equipment gives them more security of availability for it. I think in the long term, it increases their profitability since they own the asset. They know that we can service it if it's highly complex technology. And then in other cases, we have customers that only want to use it when it's appropriate for a specific project, and we can rent that equipment to them, and again, we can service it. So I think those are pretty big advantages for our customer base to go out and compete in the market. And then the last thing I would say, as you mentioned with the show that's coming up next week, that NOV is excited about this space. I think we could all say
Yes, definitely.
that. And we're here to stay. So
Right.
what we're excited about is investing all of our know-how from a technology manufacturing, you know, and
Right.
design company, and bringing new things to the space. So as you, if you can think of anything that you think would be interesting or impactful, we want to know about it.
Absolutely, and I think what you just said about the kind of NOV's infrastructure being a collaboration, working together. I mean, when I saw the guest lineup that we were going to have on today, I felt like we were like assembling the Avenger team of HDD, and I thought that was so cool, and I was excited to hear how all of these components work together, and I really think I feel like I learned a lot and got a lot from that, and like I said, if anybody wants to meet the Avengers in person, that is next week at the No Dig conference.
Absolutely.
But before I release y'all from the hot seats from the chair, I did want to go over to Ben and see if there were any audience questions for our guests.
We do have a few questions. Before we get into those, though, where is that No Dig
Oh,
conference?
yes, yeah.
Somebody asked that.
Minneapolis.
Minneapolis. Okay.
Ooh,
Great.
fun, y'all get to go to
Downtown
Minneapolis.
at the convention center. It starts Monday, the 11th, and goes through the 14th.
Yes.
Excellent,
Great.
excellent.
One question that came in was about that RSS that you mentioned and how tested it might be at this stage.
Yeah, so the technology that we have has been around actually since the 80s. I mean, most rotary steerable technology takes around 20
wow.
years to really prove out and develop. It's been, running actively all over the world in mining applications, directional drilling applications, and oil and gas, and now in the horizontal directional drilling space. So it's certainly had experience in the HDD space, and we did take some opportunities to learn from some of the things that we encountered, because it is slightly different.
Right.
And we're pretty excited about some of the refinements and things that we're bringing to the space with this technology. But in its current state, it's ready to go, and I think going to be a very exciting next 12 months rolling this out.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay. We have just a couple around pipe, mostly size of pipe. So one is about the width of the pipe, the diameter of it. I think you mentioned 7 inches.
7-inch was the one of the tool joints that the largest we can do is 8 5/8.
8 and 5/8.
So we go from 2 3/8, but usually on HED it's a larger size.
That was the exact question.
8 5/8.
And then I think Zach mentioned wider rivers and extended distances that
Right.
we're doing. What is the longest pipe that you can supply?
Oh,
The longest. The longest
The
joint.
longest length of pipe.
The longest length, we do like range 3. So that goes up max to 45 feet is the longest.
Okay. All right.
gotcha.
But in terms of the ability for us to supply technology
Yeah.
for long distance crossings, I don't think that we would have any sort of limitations in this space, especially when you consider, in the energy applications, we're talking, 3 and 4 mile applications with pipes. So
Yeah, it's the rig
Yes.
itself
Yeah.
at that
That
point.
is the limitation, yeah,
Yep.
definitely.
Yep.
Okay, great. Well, I think now we are going to answer the trivia question from the
Ooh.
beginning of the show. So the question again was, what is the torque of the strongest connection of HDD drill pipe for HDD drill pipe? And the answer is 159,000 foot-pounds. So I did not see anybody get that right in the comments. I apologize if I missed it. But
You could have gotten the answer off the website. Too
but,
bad.
yeah.
Should have said that.
get on the website.
Coulda Googled it.
Everyone did do their homework and read our whole website report. Awesome. Thank you so much, Ben. I appreciate you doing that. And if you're watching the show and you have more questions that you want to ask us, there's a couple ways you can find us. The easiest, as with every show, you can always email us at socialmedia@nov.com, and I will make sure to get you in touch with these awesome experts or whoever can answer your question best. We'll find the right person. And if you can also watch past episodes at nov.com/live. And that's where we have everything, all the stuff we've talked about, all of those episodes are there. But of course, if you want to learn more specifically about HDD, horizontal directional drilling, you can do that by going to nov.com. And we have our search function. It's one of my favorite things about our website. You can find just about anything, but you search horizontal directional drilling there, and you'll find our webpage that has all of the information. It also has a contact us section there that you can get a hold of the team. And then, as we mentioned, of course, see the team at the No Dig conference. I'm going to plug it one more time. I can't help it. It's my marketing brain.
Awesome.
But thank you all so much for joining the show today. This was, I think, might be in one of my favorite lists now for sure. I had a really great time and information for our audience. So thank you all.
Thank you for having us. Appreciate it,
All
Shelby.
right. Thank you very much.